Today we're talking about equivalent fractions, which is 4.2. Okay, so equivalent fractions are fractions that have the same value, even though they might look different. So equivalent means equal. So, for example, 1/2 equals 2/4. Now, you can see here that 1/2 of the circle is shaded, but if we split that into quarters, that actually equals 2/4. So you can see clearly that 1/2 is equal to 2/4. 1/2 is also equal to 3/6. So if they split it up into 6, you can see that 3/6 is equivalent to 1/2. So 1/2 equals 2/4 and 3/6. But what else does it equal? And how can we work it out without having to draw a circle? Alright, so here's a little trick for you. What you have to do is multiply the numerator, so the top number is the numerator, and the bottom number is the denominator. We learnt that last lesson. So you have to multiply them by the same number. And then you can multiply them by any number, and whatever fraction you get, that will be an equivalent fraction to 1/2. So to get to 2/4, what do we multiply by? So we multiplied 2 by 2. To get 4, we multiply 1 by 2, and we get 2. So what you do to the top, you must do to the bottom, and vice versa. So what you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. Alright, so to get 3/6, what did we do? So we have to still looking at 1/2 here. So 2 times 3 is 6, and then 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/2 is equal to 3/6. Now I want you to see if you can work out another equivalent fraction to 1/2. Alright, so for these purposes we're just going to multiply by 4. So 2 multiplied by 4 is 8. And then 1, well, I've sort of multiplied by 4 is 4. So an equivalent fraction for 1/2 is also 4/8. Okay, so you can see from this circle that it's split into 8ths, so 4 of those is equal to 1/2. So that's the answer there. Alright, you can also represent fractions on a number line. Okay, so hopefully you can see the 0 here. So I've split the first one into halves. So we've got 1/2 here. So this line here is 1/2. So we've got 0 and 1. And then that's split into 2, which is 1/2. So each of these is one part out of the 2 parts. Alright, the next one is split into quarters. So we can label them 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then, well, 1 will be 4/4. Alright, so you can see there that 1/2 is also equal to 2/4. Right, now I've got 8ths. So I've split into 8ths, so let's label that. 1/8, 2/8. Doing this quickly. Alright, so again we can see that 4/8 is equal to 1/2 and also equal to 2/4. Right, now what I want you to do is draw a number line to show that 3/6 is an equivalent fraction to 1/2. So I need you to do that, please, and I'll be checking this in class. Alrighty, so now we've got another one here. I want you to have a go at this, please. Pause the video, write this down, and I'll be checking to see if you did this. Okay, this is the answer you should have got. So, 3 times 2 is 6. So we multiply the top number and the bottom number by 2. So what we do to the top, we must do to the bottom. Then we multiply by 3. So 3 3 is 9. 1 times 3 is 3. Then we multiply by 4. To get 4/12. So these are all equivalent fractions. So even though they all have different numerators and different denominators, they all equal the same amount. Alright, I want you to do this one for me, please. So pause the video and do this one. And that's what you should have got. Hopefully now that you understand equivalent fractions. So when you are looking at these fractions, I need you to find out what the numerator is. So we do this by working out what the denominators have been multiplied by. So you can see 4 times what equals 20. And then you have to do the same thing to the top number. So 4 times 5 is 20. So 3 times 5 is 15. So 3/4 also equals 15 over. Alright, so what we do to the numerator, to multiply that by 4, we must do to the denominator. Please can you write that down in your books just to remind you. Very important rule you must remember. Alright, now we're moving on to simplifying fractions. When we simplify a fraction, we need to divide it by the highest common factor. So remember last term we learned about highest common factors? We need to do that to write the fraction in its simplest form. So the lowest possible fraction we can get it down to, the lowest numerator and denominator we can get it down to, but it will still obviously be an equivalent fraction, just in its simplest form. Write that down. So when we're looking at 24 over 36, there are heaps of fractions that are the same as this, but we need to find the fraction in its simplest form, so the lowest possible form it can go into. Alright, so we can divide it by 2, then 2, then 3 to get 2/3. So we can divide and divide till we get to the numbers when we can't divide anymore. Alright, but there is an easier way. So this is called simplifying, but to do it more quickly, we can actually, we find the highest common factor, so the number that actually, the number that goes into both of these numbers that they have in common, then you get straight down to the simplest form. Okay, you don't have to do it this way, this is just the way with the least amount of steps. Alright, so you need to look for the common factors, so the factors that will divide into both the numerator and the denominator. So for this, what would be the common factors for this one, or the highest common factor for 21 over 28? Well, if you said 7, you would be correct. So we needed to divide the numerator and the denominator both by 7, then we can get down to its simplest form. So 21 over 28 equals 3/4. So they're equivalent fractions. Alright, what are the common factors of 6 and 12? So you need to be looking for the highest common factor, if you can, of 6 and 12. Okay, so this is a pretty easy one. You could do 2, 3 or 6, but obviously 6 is the highest common factor. And if you did just 6 straight away, then you would get down to 1/2. But you could just, if you're not too sure about it, you could just divide by 2 if you know it's an even number. On these ones, you know that 3 and 6, 3 goes into 6, so you can divide by 3, just working it out yourself there, till you get down to the any longer. Alright, I want you to do these in your book, please. Alright, and this is what you should have come up with. Hopefully now you understand simplifying fractions and what equivalent fractions are as well. Alrighty, so this is the last thing you need to write down. So you need to remember, to make equivalent fractions, you multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number. So to make an equivalent fraction, you can multiply them by whatever number you want and you'll make an equivalent fraction, so a fraction that is equal to the original fraction. And to simplify a fraction, you're basically doing the reverse. So you're dividing the numerator and the denominator by the highest common factor, or you can just keep dividing it until you can't divide anymore to get into its lowest form, or its simplest form. Okay, so to make equivalent fractions we multiply, to simplify we divide.